The scissors flashed under the chandelier. Then came a sound no one in that ballroom would forget. The soft, wrong sound of a child's braid cut off at the root. It fell onto the white marble, a small dark rope of hair, tied at the end with a cheap yellow bead. The girl was 3 years old. She did not cry at first. She only reached up and touched where her hair used to be. And 200 of the richest people in the city watched it happen and said nothing. Before I tell you who held those scissors and what walked through the doors 90 seconds later, do something for me. The woman clutching that little girl was a maid. You are about to learn she was also the one person alive that the most dangerous man in Japan had spent 6 years trying to find. Subscribe so you don't miss the moment he found her. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight. I want to know who was in the room. Let me take you back to that morning. Before the marble. Before the scissors. Her name was Nia. She was 31. She was a maid at the Nakamura estate, and she was very good at it. She could set a table for 40 from memory. She knew which of the old vases would crack if you breathed on them wrong. She had been a nurse once, in another life, and her hands still moved like it. Careful, sure, steady under pressure that made other people shake. That morning she had already saved the whole dinner. A delivery came in wrong. 60 guests and no fish. Nia knew a supplier 3 streets over. She had it fixed in 20 minutes. The head chef took the credit. She expected nothing else. A young footman called her girl all day, though he was 10 years younger than her. She answered to it. She always answered to it. You learn to. She was a widow. Her husband had been gone 2 years. She had a daughter named Emmy, who was 3, with a head full of tight little braids that Nia redid every Sunday night. There was no money for anyone to watch Emmy that day. The woman who usually did was sick. So Nia brought her daughter to work, tucked her in the staff kitchen with crayons, and prayed she would go unnoticed for one evening. The old housekeeper, Mrs. Sato, loved them both. That child is no trouble, she told Nia, and you are the best pair of hands in this house. Don't let them tell you otherwise. They told her otherwise all the time. She was invisible to almost everyone in that estate. A maid is furniture that walks. She had made a kind of peace with it. Furniture does not get hurt. The party that night was an engagement. The heir of the Nakamura family, a soft young man named Hiroshi, was to marry a woman named Reina. Reina was beautiful the way a knife is beautiful. She had come from nothing and clawed her way up, and she had decided the cure for that shame was to make sure everyone beneath her knew their place. Tonight was her night. She had waited her whole life for a room full of important people to look at her like she mattered, and nothing, she had decided, would be allowed to distract from it. She had a way of smiling at the staff that was worse than shouting. She learned their small mistakes and saved them for later. She had already made a maid cry that afternoon over a single water spot on a glass. The other servants moved around her like she was hot to the touch. Nia kept her head down. She kept Emmy hidden. She counted the hours until it was over. She almost made it. The ballroom filled, crystal and silk and old money. Nia moved through it with trays, quiet, quick, unseen. It was going fine. It was almost over. Then Emmy got scared in the empty kitchen and came looking for her mother. The little girl wandered out into the ballroom in her second-hand dress, looking for the one face she trusted. She found Nia, but she found her at the worst possible moment, right at the edge of the circle where Reina stood, holding court glowing, the center of every eye in the room. Emmy tugged her mother's apron. A small brown child in a room built to keep small brown children out. And Reina saw a stain on her perfect night. "Whose is this?" Reina said. Not who. Whose? Mine, Nia said. She scooped Emmy up. I'm so sorry. I'll take her out. She was frightened, that's all. Raina could have let it go. A better person would not have even noticed. But Raina had spent her whole life being the one who got looked down on, and here, finally, was someone below her. The temptation was too much. She looked at Emmy's careful little braids, the yellow bead, the love in every twist of them. And she decided to teach the room who she was. Look at this hair, Raina said, loud, laughing, playing to the crowd. Like a mop, like something you'd sweep the floor with. In my house, we won't have that. She plucked a pair of gold sewing scissors from a decorative table. Let me help. Nia understood a half-second too late. Raina caught one braid and cut it. Right there, in front of everyone. The little girl's hair fell on the marble, and the yellow beads skittered across the floor, and Emmy's face crumpled into the particular silent horror of a child who does not yet have words for what just happened to her. The room laughed. Some of it. The worst of it. The rest went quiet in the way that is its own kind of laughing. Nia did not scream. She wanted to. Every nerve in her body wanted to. But she had learned a long time ago what happens to a poor woman who makes a scene in a rich person's house. She would lose everything, and Emmy would still have short hair. So she pulled her daughter into her chest and covered the shorn head with her hand, and she looked at Hiroshi, the groom, the man with all the power in that room. She looked at him, and she waited for him to say one word. Just one. Hiroshi looked at his shoes. The heir to the whole estate discovered something fascinating about his own polished shoes, and studied it until the moment passed. The one person who could have stopped it chose, like all of them, to see nothing. Nia turned to carry her daughter out of that room and out of that job forever. And that is exactly when the doors at the far end of the ballroom opened. The change in the room was instant. It moved like a cold wind. The laughter died. The important people stopped being important all at once. 2 men in dark suits came in first and stood aside. And then he came through, and every proud spine in that ballroom bent a little without being told to. He was not tall. He did not need to be. He wore a plain dark suit and a stillness that made the whole chandelier-lit room feel loud and cheap by comparison. Old Nakamura himself, the patriarch, hurried forward to bow to him. So did the men who had been laughing a moment ago. Because the Nakamura family's money was clean. But the thing that kept it safe was not. And the thing that kept it safe had just walked in the door. His name was Takeshi. And this whole glittering family existed, quietly, under his hand. He walked into the center of the room. He saw the braid on the floor first, a small dark rope of hair with a cut end. He stopped and looked at it for a long moment, and something in his face went very still. Then he looked up. At the crying child, at the hand covering her head, and then at the face of the woman holding her. And Takeshi, the most feared man in the country, forgot how to breathe. Nia, he said. Just her name, in a voice no one in that room had ever heard him use. She did not understand. She had never seen this man in a suit, in the light, whole. The last time she saw him, he had been half dead on a table. 6 years fell away in a second. His face was older now, whole now. But the eyes were the same eyes she had watched all night, willing them to stay open. Her hands knew him before her mind did. The tray she was holding began to shake. She heard herself say 2 words. You lived. It was all she had. He nodded slow, his own eyes shone. I lived, he said, because of you. Let me tell you about 6 years ago. Nia had been a young nurse then, at a small hospital on the edge of the city. One night men carried in a stranger, bleeding badly, and the hospital would not take him. He was marked, full body work under the torn shirt, blue and red from his throat to his waist. The kind of man the rules said to turn away. The senior doctor found urgent paperwork on another floor. Everyone found somewhere else to be. Nia did not. She took him into a back room against every rule she had. She stopped the bleeding with her own 2 hands. She sat with him all night while his fever broke, and she held his hand when he shook, and she did not once ask him what he was or what he had done. She only kept saying, "You are not going to die tonight, not on my shift." He drifted in and out. He said a woman's name that was not hers, and she answered to it anyway, because a frightened man needs an anchor and it does not matter whose. She wiped the sweat off him. She hummed, low, the way you do for a child. She had no idea he was anyone at all. He was just a man who was not allowed to die on her watch. That was the whole of it. That was everything. By morning he was going to live. He asked her name. She told him. Then her supervisor found out what she had done, and she was quietly let go, and she moved cities to start over and married, and had Emmy and buried a husband, and became a maid to survive. Takeshi had spent 6 years looking for the nurse who saved his life and asked for nothing. He had searched under the wrong name. He had almost stopped. And he had just walked into a family party to find her holding a child whose hair had been cut off for sport, while 200 people watched. He crossed the room. He knelt down. This man the whole city feared knelt on the marble in front of a maid and her crying daughter. He picked up the little braid with its yellow bead, gently, like it was made of glass. He looked at Emmy. "That was a beautiful braid," he said, soft to the child. "The person who did that to you was wrong, not you. Her. Do you understand? Nothing is wrong with you at all." Emmy, 3 years old, stopped crying, because something in his voice told her she was safe. Then Takeshi stood up, and the temperature of the room dropped 10 degrees. "Whose scissors?" he said. The same word Reina had used. Whose Reina, who did not yet understand, tried to laugh. It was only a servant's child. A little joke. "Takeshi-sama, surely you this woman," Takeshi said. And his quiet voice, carried to every corner, held me together with her hands while I bled out on a night when every important person in a building decided I was not worth saving. She asked for nothing. She never knew who I was. She is the reason I am alive to stand in this room. And you cut her daughter's hair off. For sport, to make yourself feel tall. Old Nakamura had gone gray. Hiroshi looked like he might be sick. "The engagement is over," Takeshi said, and he did not say it to Reina. He said it to Nakamura, whose family answered to him, and the old man nodded fast, because there was no version of tonight where he argued. This family does not marry someone who does that to a child. Not while I draw breath. Reina's whole world came apart in her face in real time. The room, the marriage, the important people. Gone, all of it, in 90 seconds, taken by the one person she had been too small to imagine could matter. "You will pick up the hair," Takeshi told her. "Every strand, on your knees. And you will apologize to that little girl and to her mother, and you will use her name, which is Nia, and you will say it with respect. And then you will leave this house and every room I am ever in for the rest of your life." She did it. The beautiful, cruel woman who had waited her whole life to be looked up to got down on the marble in her silk gown, in front of 200 people, and gathered a child's shorn braids with shaking hands. She apologized to a 3-year-old. She said Naya's name. She said it kindly, because she was terrified, and it was the first honest thing she had done all night. Nia did not gloat. She was still shaking. She held her daughter and watched a powerful man give her back something that could not be given back, and understood that he was trying anyway. He looked at Mrs. Sato across the room. He said the old housekeeper would keep her position, and her wages would double, because she was the only one in that house who had ever treated these two like people. Mrs. Sato wept into her apron. Hiroshi tried to speak. Takeshi did not let him. "You watched," he said. "A man who only watches is not the head of anything." And that was the last thing he ever said to him. Takeshi turned to her last. His voice went soft again. "I looked for you for 6 years," he said. "I am sorry I did not find you before tonight. You will never be invisible again, not to anyone. I give you my word, and my word is the only thing in this country worth more than money." He did not offer her a job. He offered her a life. A home, safety, Emmy's schooling, whatever she wanted. No strings, because a debt like his does not get paid with strings. He told her she could refuse all of it, and he would still make sure no one in that family ever looked through her again. Nia looked at this man kneeling in her memory beside this man standing in front of her, and she believed him. Emmy's hair grew back. Nia braided it every Sunday, the same as always, with a new yellow bead. They did not stay maids. But Nia kept a small pair of scissors on a shelf in her new home, the gold ones, the ones from the ballroom, and when people asked why, she said they reminded her of the night she stopped being furniture. Takeshi came to see them sometimes. Not often. He never overstayed his welcome. He would sit on the floor and let Emmy comb his hair with a plastic brush and pretend it hurt. This man the whole country feared, wincing on command for a 3-year-old. Nia would watch from the kitchen doorway and think about how strange mercy is, how it hides in the people the world throws away, how it waits, quiet, for years, and then walks through a door. Here is the thing about the people you decide are beneath you. You never once know who they saved on a night you will never hear about. Cruelty feels like power in the moment. It is the opposite. It is the smallest thing a person can do, and it always, always finds its way back to a room with the wrong witness in it. The maid pouring wine had held a dying man's hand and asked for nothing. And nothing turned out to be the most expensive thing anyone in that ballroom would ever owe. Now tell me, what was the moment you stopped scrolling? The braid hitting the marble, the groom staring at his shoes, or the doors opening at the far end of the room? Tell me in the comments. Share this with someone who has ever been made to feel small in a room they cleaned themselves. And if you want to know what happened to Reina after she left that house, and who was waiting for her, say part 2, and I'll tell you the rest.